want everybody into the meeting, I guess.
Hello, caller. Can I get your name for the attendance?
Mike.
Yes.
Pardon me?
David Stewart. Did you get that?
The sound is not working on your meeting.
Cumberland County has adopted official plan number 1, which established a natural heritage system. Okay, and no public comment.
Hello, David. Any questions? David, do you hear us? I'm going to go on to the gallery and ask the gallery has any questions, and then we'll come back and see if Mr. Stewart is still on the line. So does the gallery have any questions regarding this application? Seeing none, I'm going to ask you again, Mr. Stewart, in case you're still there. We're having audio problems. Do you have any comments? Okay, we'll move on. Do you have any comment, Jennifer?
No, through you, Mayor Vogel, would you like me to read the recommendation?
Please.
The recommendation is that application 01-2023 by David and Colleen Stewart to sever a parcel of land for the creation of a new vacant rural residential lot at 169 Boyle Road and part of Lot 18, Concession 2, Geographic Township of Haldimand is hereby approved subject to the following conditions. 1, that a registered survey for the severed parcel be submitted to the township. 2, further to the printed plan of survey, a closed polygon vector file of the part boundaries shown on the reference plan is to be provided in spatially referenced Autodesk DWG Windows readable format to the satisfaction of the township. It is recommended that the applicant's Ontario land surveyor consult with the County of Northumberland GIS section to confirm acceptable standards in formatting. 3, that a draft transfer for the severed parcel be submitted to the township. 4, that the tax account for the severed property be paid up to date. 5, that the $11,813.38 development charge for the severed lot be paid to the township of Haldimand. And 6, that the $1,500 cash in lieu of parkland fee be paid to the township of Haldimand.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions? Mary Catherine?
Were you, Mayor, local to our planner for the development charges? If this applicant comes back after our new development charges, would it be different, or because we are putting a number in there, that's the number for them?
Through you, Mayor Logo. The number contained in the recommendation is the amount that they have to pay in order to satisfy the condition of consent. If that number changes between the time that it is paid and a building permit is pulled for the property, say if a development charge goes up, they'll have to pay the difference between this charge and the increase at the time of building permits issued.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? So, Jennifer's read off the conditions. I'll ask for a motion then to, and let you decide what you want, what the motion is. So, you wish to approve this? Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councillor Ainsworth. Any further discussions on this application? All in favor? That motion's carried. Next, we have an application by James S., short for Stephen Gilchrist, AH02 2023, Concession 9, Park Lot 32, geographically in Alderman Township. Jennifer, please take us through it.
Certainly. Reading my logo. This application pertains to land in part of lot 32, concession 9, geographic township of Elmwood, or geographic township of Haldeman. The civic address is 206 Lilac Valley Road. The purpose of this application is to sever a parcel of vacant rural land for the creation of a vacant lot that will be then conveyed to the Oak Ridges Moraine Land Trust for natural heritage conservation. The severed lot has an area of 28.7 hectares, and the retained lot has an area of 2.4 hectares. You'll notice on the sketch that the applicant provided that those numbers were reversed, but on the application form, they had indicated that the severed parcel was to be the larger vacant parcel, and the retained parcel was to be the smaller parcel containing the dwelling and buildings. This property is located on the Oak Ridges Moraine, and the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan contains very specific policies that permit the creation of lots within that geographic feature. The subject property is located at the northwest intersection of Lilac Valley Road and County Road 9, and is developed with a single detached dwelling, a large barn, and 2 accessory structures. Those buildings have frontage on Lilac Valley Road, where the severed lot has frontage on both Lilac Valley Road and County Road 9. Significant portions of the subject property are under active agricultural cultivation, and the on-site large barn appears to be capable of accommodating livestock. There are multiple water courses that traverse the subject property. Surrounding land uses consist of agricultural land uses to the east and southeast, an active aggregate operation located immediately west, and heavily forested lands to the south. There are also other numerous rural properties within the area. There's a tall guy-wired communications tower located immediately south of the proposed severed lot, and a Hydro One transformer station is located in close proximity to the communication tower. There's a provincial groundwater monitoring network well located on the proposed severed lot. The well is accessed via 206 Lilac Valley Road, and if this application is approved, access to the monitoring well will be lost or will have to be renegotiated with the landowners. The property is located entirely on the Oak Ridges Moraine and subject to the policies of the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan. Property is designated also countryside rural in the official plan, the township's official plan. And so the provincial policy statement doesn't contain policies pertaining specifically to the Oak Ridges Moraine. That's under another piece of provincial legislation, but it does contain policies regarding the rural areas, and they're generally areas that are for agricultural and other rural land uses. So the development would be permitted under the policies of the provincial policy statement. There are natural heritage features and natural hazard features on the subject property, that lands that are to be severed. However, because the purpose of this application is for natural heritage preservation, a natural heritage study and a hydrologic evaluation were not required, because the land is going to be conveyed to the Oak Ridges Moraine Land Trust and protected for natural heritage preservation with no development on it. In their January 6th comments, Lower Trent stated that provided the severed lands are conveyed to a conservation authority, A conservation body is identified in the Conservation Land Act, such as the Oak Ridges Moraine Land Trust, as a nature preserve. It is their opinion that the intent of the natural heritage policies of the provincial policy statement and Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan have been maintained.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay, well, I'm just,
Or you're not-
I've got more.
Okay. We're enjoying it.
I'm sure you are. The Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan contains very strict policies regarding the creation of lots on the Oak Ridges Moraine. There are very few opportunities, but one of the opportunities for severances are the creation of lots. And under the words of the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan, it states that facilitating conveyances to public bodies or nonprofit entities for natural heritage conservation are permitted. So severances are permitted for this use. And one of the recommendations of one of my recommendations is that a condition be placed on the severance that the applicant's lawyer provide an undertaking that the land will be conveyed to the Oak Ridges Moraine Land Trust. And if that undertaking is not provided, then the severance can't be finalized and it would lapse. So it would be one of the conditions that's required to finalize the severance. And the applicant is aware of this. He's very familiar with the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan and the purpose of the conservation plan. The Northumberland County official plan, the lands are designated Oak Ridges Moraine. The counties reviewed this application and they agreed that the land should be, that the severance is permitted. However, they did state that they think that the severed parcel should be rezoned to recognize its intended use, including the prohibition of a residential dwelling. However, my recommendation doesn't include a requirement for rezoning. In discussions with the Oak Ridges Moraine Land Trust, I contacted them directly to see how this worked out and make sure that the land wasn't subsequently sold and could be developed. And they confirmed that under the, I believe it's the federal government's ecological gift program, that there are very strict requirements as to what can be done with the land and what the Oak Ridges Moraine Land Trust can do with the land. So buildings wouldn't be permitted on it. If the municipality decided they wanted to do a sort of a, I think lawyers call it belt and suspenders, they have both options to protect the land. You could require a zoning bylaw amendment to prohibit any residential dwellings on the property. That is an option that you could do. But I think that you're covered with the conveyance to the Oak Ridges Moraine Land Trust, as well as the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan allows for development of properties that were eligible in existence and eligible for a building permit when the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan came into effect. And with this case, the new lot being created wasn't in effect, wasn't in existence when the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan came into effect and wouldn't be eligible for a building permit. But if you put zoning on the property, it's specifically prohibiting any development, it's very clear in your zoning bylaw that nothing is permitted. So the property is zoned Oak Ridges Moraine Oak Ridges Moraine Mineral Extractive, Oak Ridges Moraine Countryside, Oak Ridges Moraine Plan Review, and Oak Ridges Moraine Environmental. There is no recommendation that the lands need to be rezoned in order to satisfy this, but as I discussed, if you choose, you could rezone the property to prohibit any residential development. The application was circulated as required by the Planning Act. Manager of Public Works indicated that there's an existing field entrances to the retained property, and additional entrances could be issued if required. Lower Trent commented that they have no objections with the application. Northumberland County reviewed the application and they requested rezoning. They also requested road widening along the County Road 9 frontage, which is pretty consistent for every severance we see with frontage on a county road. So notice of this application was circulated to all registered landowners within 60 meters of the property on January 6, 2023. A sign was posted on the property that same day. I have received a call from an area resident requesting additional information. I provided details and they seemed to be satisfied with the information provided. I also emailed them a copy of the application, which they've requested. A separate email was received requesting clarification of the application. During subsequent correspondence, we confirmed that the severed land would be conveyed to the Oak Ridges Marine Land Trust, and that as a condition, the applicant's lawyer would be required to submit an undertaking confirming that the land would be conveyed to the land trust. And after the report was written and published, I received a subsequent email, and they were in support of the application. They all were also wondering or suggesting that the lands be rezoned to prohibit any residential development. That is the total of the comments that I've received. And if you've got any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Jennifer. That last letter you wrote, was that from a resident or that a lawyer?
No, this last one was from an area resident. They were wondering whether or not they needed to do a natural heritage evaluation and natural hydrologic evaluation, because when they read the Oak Ridges Marine Conservation Plan, they thought it would be a requirement of the Oak Ridges Marine Conservation Plan. But in reviewing it, it's my interpretation that the natural heritage evaluation and natural hydrologic evaluation are required when the lot being created is intended for development, because the Oak Ridges Marine Conservation Plan is a really complicated piece of policy. There are opportunities in the Oak Ridges Marine Conservation Plan for municipalities to have areas designated for residential development. However, they had to do a lot of technical scientific studies in order to do that. And municipalities in Northumberland County haven't done that. So section 32 says you can create a lot, but then section 14 says you can create a lot, then section 32 says, but then you go back to another section and it says you can only do it if you do X, Y, and Z. And we haven't done X, Y, and Z. So that's why things are pretty limited. And it's my interpretation that the hydrologic and natural heritage studies are only required when the lots are going to be created for development.
Thank you. I have another couple of things maybe you can clarify. Lilac Valley runs between, so I believe you said that, or I undertook it, it's on both sides of Lilac Road?
No, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Through you, Mayor Logo. The subject property has frontage on both County Road 9 and Lilac Valley Road. The residence and farm buildings are accessed off of Lilac Valley Road with the civic address of 206 Lilac Valley Road, whereas that's the retained portion. The severed portion, which is the larger property going to be conveyed to the Oak Ridges Marine Land Trust, has frontage on both Lilac Valley Road and County Road 9.
Okay, but nothing on the east side of Lilac Valley Road?
No, there's nothing on the east side.
Thank you. And for council's information, when I spoke to the applicant there a couple of months ago, I'm under the impression that the plan is to continue that for agricultural, although it's going through the land trust. They plan on using it for agricultural purposes. So I'm happy to hear that, at least that for the time. I would like to ask a little bit more about the well that you mentioned. Is that who owns the well, and is it there for a reason, or do you know?
The well it's an Ontario provincial groundwater monitoring well. It is overseen by staff at Lower Trent Conservation who go in and take readings from it. It's part of a network of groundwater monitoring wells. And who actually owns the well? I think it's the provincial government that owns the well. It's monitored by Lower Trent Conservation, but it's on the property of the applicant. Mr. Gilchrist is here, and he could provide us with some additional information if he is able to.
I've heard in the past few years with abandoned well that could be donated ever and be a danger to the public, et cetera, et cetera. So that's really all I want to clarify with you.
No, it's not that sort of a well. It's very small diameter and very, and I have renewed the contract with Lower Trent to allow them to keep monitoring. It is owned by the province, and were it to ever be denied, were a subsequent landowner to ever deny access, the province simply comes in, taps the well, and removes it. But I've spoken to the Oak Ridge Marine Land Trust, and they have the same interest I have in making sure that sort of information is still available. It's not just for their benefit, for the benefit of all the neighbors around us to continue to monitor the hydrogeological state of those lands.
Okay, thank you. Does council, just before I let you go, I'll let council ask do you have any questions regarding this application? Councilor O'Neill.
Through you, Mayor Lobo. What is the use in the southwest corner of the property? So that I see it's surrounded by trees, it's in just past, but it appears to be cleared. Is that just another field or was that aggregate?
That was an adjunct to the aggregate pit next door. At one point, we extinguished the license on the part that came onto lot, help me out, Jennifer, 32. I was, yes, the lot 32.
Yeah.
So it is a more or less level field. Several years ago, we started planting pine and other trees on there, and then Mother Nature has taken care of a lot of regenerative growth around a pond that we was a natural spring that popped up there, and of course all the original topsoil has been saved as a berm on the side. So it is an area that technically is covered by the Oak Ridges Marine aggregate extraction zoning, but we have extinguished the
yes.
the
There's
license.
no rehabilitation required
No.
before this happens.
We've done.
You've already done it.
Yes.
Okay, that was what I wanted to know.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
I'd like to thank you for doing this. For it's actually and ensure the open stays a healthy, viable sort of
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. In light of what the current provincial government has been doing, I don't mean this to sound corny, but this to me makes sure that those lands are protected in perpetuity. It doesn't need other rezoning. There will be a federal government easement applied on there under the Eco Gifts program. We've already got a provincial law that guarantees it. But you never know about government. So this way, by putting it in the hands of a conservation body, and as I'm sure the planner would confirm, if they ever change their mind, they can only sell it to another conservation group. So Nature Conservancy or the Northumberland Land Trust or the county itself. So it really is the ultimate form of protection of some lands we've come to fall in love with. And I appreciate it. Just anecdotally, Hazelbird's daughter was our first employee when we had a horse business on the property back 40 years ago. And of course, the Hazelbird Nature Preserve, just across the border in Hamilton Township, has become a very noteworthy natural heritage success story. And we have every ambition to see the same sort of thing on our side of the border in Almacolm. Thank you.
Any questions for council? Steve, you have any further comments?
Just to thank the planner. This was not exactly a typical severance, and I want to thank Ms. Curran very much for her very thoughtful and professional way that she's pursued this, and it's been a joy to work with you on this process, and I couldn't agree more with all your recommendations. So all's well that ends well, hopefully. But thank you, Your Worship. Unless there are other questions,
I'm just going to ask the public. Is there any questions, comments from the public regarding this application? Yes, Ms. Cole.
Yes, I think after having it clarified that the severance is for the larger portion, I too agree that it's very noble that this is being donated to the Oak Ridges Marine Land Trust. Is that an independent body of the Ontario, from the Ontario government?
We own completely. It's a charitable organization.
Perfect. I just wanted to
It's just like the NCC or the Northumberland Land Trust.
So my question does come back a bit to the pit, because there's been a lot of issues regarding the pit. And since this land has come back to the Gilchrist, to you, because it was owned by Coburg Sand and Gravel, a couple of member companies.
Yes.
Yes, a couple of there were two number companies, one for the farm, right? So, there is no way that the, can the Aggregate Resources Act still override if someone comes in and says that that needs to be accessed for aggregate resource?
Through you, your worship, I would offer the thought that it is my understanding that once the federal easement is on there, no provincial law can then trump that. So each level of government, of course, has authority over all of the ones below it. But if one wanted to do that, the irony is one of the things you would have to do if you were applying for a new pit license is prove there is.
Aggregate there.
No, more than that. You have to prove there's an unmet need to warrant another pit.
You know the answer to
Since the pit next door is not even actively being used, I think that would be quite a stretch to try to prove that. So, but you would have to start all over again. As I say, we extinguished all claim to the previous license on that portion of the land.
I think I have one more question, carry on. So I did a little bit of research on this. First partnership that is actually with the 36 Ontario conservation authorities. This is just interesting. There's 450 of these monitoring wells around Ontario, but currently only 19 of them are being monitored because they gathered the data and whatever from other wells. So do you know if this well is one of the ones that is being monitored?
Is my understanding. Again, back in the spring, through your worship, back in the spring, I was approached by the Lower Trent. Anytime a property changes hands, they have to re-secure permission to visit the lands and inspect the well, which they were given. And it's certainly my understanding that on an annual basis they do, in fact.
One more question for you, Mayor.
One more question.
All the time. So at the present time, that well is accessed by a 206 line, correct?
You could come at it through kind of the existing driveways are on Lilac Valley Road, but you could just as easily walk in through the.
Okay, so they can have access from there. So the only one that would have to be negotiated with would be the Ontario or the land trust.
And they are.
And they'd be willing to, because it's a check. Okay.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Steve.
Sure.
Thank you, Paul. Any further questions and comments? I'll let you read the motion.
Certainly, through you, Mayor Lobo. The recommendation is that application AH02-2023 by James S. Field Steve to sever a vacant rural lot in part of lot 32, concession 9, geographic Alderman, now township of Alderman, is hereby approved subject to the following conditions. 1, that a registered survey for the severed parcel be submitted to the township. 2, further to the printed plan, a survey of closed polygon vector file of part boundaries shown on the reference plan is to be provided in spatially referenced Autodesk BWG Windows readable format for satisfaction of the township. It is recommended that the applicant's interior land surveyor consult with the County of Northumberland GIS section to confirm acceptable standards and formatting. 3, that a draft transfer for the severed parcel be submitted to the township. 4, that the tax account for the subject property be paid up to date. 5, that the applicant's lawyer submit an undertaking confirming that the severed parcel will be transferred to the Oak Ridges Marine Land Trust to be used for natural heritage conservation. 6, that the applicant shall lay out and dedicate to the County of Northumberland a strip of land ensuring 17 meters from the center line of County Road 9 along the frontage of the severed portion for road widening purposes to the satisfaction of the County of Northumberland.
Thank you, Jennifer. And I guess what we're going to ask this time, Jennifer's read off her 7 recommendations, and the motion will be to approve this application with those 7 recommendations. So could I have a move and a second for that? Moved by Councillor Booth, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Next application is for Irina Hayatek. AH03 2023, concession 7, part of lot 21, geographically in Elmwood. Jennifer, you have the floor.
Certainly, through you, Mayor Lobo. I just noticed another one of my 2022-2023 problems. In the recommendation, I've written AH03 2022, it's application for 2022, it's AH03 2023. This application pertains to land located at 1013 Merrill Road. The property has frontage on both Merrill Road and the 7th line. The purpose of the application is to create a 0.4 hectare property and a retained lot of 18 hectares. The applicants initially applied for a 0.4 hectare property with 45 meters of frontage. However, after an initial review of the application, the frontage of that proposed severed lot is on a segment of 7th line that has a steep slope and a safe entrance would not be possible. Subsequent to discussions with the applicant, they agreed to revise their proposal and extend the property frontage to the west to include an existing field entrance. And that revised sketch is illustrated on figure 2 to the report. And the proposed severed lot is now 0.68 hectares with the retained lot of 17.8 hectares. So the property is located in the northwest quadrant of the municipality with frontage on both Merrill Road, 7th line, and Sunset Bay Road. It also has frontage on the south shore of Rice Lake. The proposed separate lot will be located on the north side of the 7th line, west of 342 7th line, which was previously severed from the property. The subject property is developed with a detached garage accessed via Merrill Road, approximately 210 meters from the south shore of Rice Lake. The lake frontage is entirely regulated by the Conservation Authority, and there's a large forested area located on the north half of the property. And the southern portion of the property has been cleared for agricultural cultivation. The 7th, as I mentioned earlier, the 7th line frontage includes a steep slope encompassing the entirety of the initially proposed severed lot, which was then extended to include area that could be used for safe access. Surrounding land uses consist of large agricultural parcels to the west, east, and south, while the southern shore of Rice Lake has been developed with shoreline residential development. Unoccupied livestock barns were identified at 248 7th line and 875 Merrill Road, and an active beef farm is located at 460 Boyle Road, approximately 420 meters from the proposed severed lot. The property is located in a rural area, and the provincial policy statement allows for severances in the rural area. It has frontage on a year-round municipally maintained road and is sufficiently sized to accommodate the required private services. MDS calculations were provided for all 3 surrounding livestock facilities, and the proposed severed lot is located outside those required MDS setbacks. There are no natural heritage features or natural hazard features identified on the proposed severed lot. There's unevaluated wetland on the subject property. However, it's located well outside the 120-meter influence area, so it has no impact on the application. Floodplain mapping is available for Rice Lake, and Lower Trent Conservation confirmed that the proposed severed lot is located outside the flood hazard. Rice Lake's considered fish habitat. However, the severed lot is located outside of the 120-meter setback influence area for fish habitat. So while Rice Lake and the unevaluated wetlands are considered key hydrologic features under the growth plan, since the severed lot is located outside of the 120-meter influence area, a hydrologic evaluation was not required. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. Northumberland County designates this property rural area, and the county official plan allows for severances in compliance with the lower tier official plan. The property zone, or excuse me, designated rural and environmental protection on Schedule A of the township's official plan. The severed lot is located in the rural area, and severances are permitted in the rural area. The lot would be severed lot would be considered a non-farm residential use and is permitted subject to compliance with the minimum distance separation calculations that were undertaken and confirmed that it's far enough away from surrounding livestock facilities. The official plan permits a maximum of 2 severances from a property with an area of less than 36 hectares. As the property existed in 1990, there's been 1 previous severance. So with this severance, no additional severances would be permitted from this property. So the severance complies with the township's official plan. The property is zoned rural and environmentally sensitive areas. The proposed severed lot is on an area that's zoned rural, which permits a dwelling. However, the minimum lot area is 5 hectares and the proposed, it should now say proposed 0.68 hectare because that was revised. The 0.68 hectare severed lot is smaller than the minimum lot size required for the rural zone. So it should be rezoned to rural residential, which permits a single detached dwelling on a lot having a minimum lot area of 0.4 hectares with 45 meters of frontage. The application was circulated as required by the Planning Act. Alderville First Nation commented that they don't have any issues with granting this severance. Lower Trent had no objection. Northumberland County had no objection. The manager of Public Works reviewed the application and initially said that an entrance permit could not be permitted, given the configuration of the original application, which was subsequently revised to extend the frontage to the west, and now they are satisfied. However, they did note that the existing field entrance should be upgraded because there's no culvert under it. And as such, they recommended that this condition be added to as a recommendation that the applicant apply for an entrance permit for the existing field entrance on the retained parcel, and further that the existing field entrance be improved with the installation of a 9-meter by 450 millimeter culvert to the satisfaction of the manager of Public Works. That condition has been included in the recommendations. Notice of the application was circulated to all registered landowners within 60 meters of the property on January 6th, and a sign was posted. We've received 2 telephone inquiries regarding the proposal expressing concerns over safe access. The application was revised to allow for a safe access as confirmed by the manager of Public Works. So the recommendation is that the application be approved. The application is consistent with the township's official plan, the county official plan, and the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, and the provincial policy statement.
Thank you, Jennifer. I have one quick question regarding the entrance, and I think it's been addressed really well already. I'm just wondering if, and I don't know where they're planning to put a house or anything like that, or if they are, but is it going to be, because of this moving the driveway, or is it going to be a problem for other emergency vehicles to get to the property? You know what I'm asking?
Through your memo, I believe you're inquiring as to whether the driveway on the property will be navigable by emergency vehicles. Is that what you're asking?
I couldn't say it better.
Okay. Yes, I spoke with the manager of Public Works, who confirmed that the driveway should be navigable for emergency vehicles.
Thank you.
But they are intending to, I'm not sure whether the existing owners are going to sell the lot or whether they're building on it themselves. I believe they're probably going to be selling it, but I believe that the building site on the property is sort of at the top of the hill, close to where the original was. So it's kind of, the revised lot is L-shaped, which I really don't usually like. I don't like irregularly shaped lots, but in this case, they're coming in, they're going up the laneway, and then they can get up to the top of the hill.
Thank you. Members of council, any questions regarding this application? I'm not sure, but is Miss Tech on the line? Seeing no one, I'm going to open it up for members of the gallery. Any questions regarding this application?
Yes, are you able to hear me?
Oh, just a moment. Who's that?
They have the initials MC. I'm not sure what their name is.
Can you, sir, can you identify your name, please? You're
Yeah,
on the-
it's Michael Kane.
Thank you, Michael. You have a question?
So, yeah, so the one it is in the very corner of a four-way intersection. So the entrance kind of does present a conflict for anybody who is looking to continue their drive, say north, when they would be exiting their driveway at the north. So I'm not sure why that hasn't been given any site as far as safety and where the entrance permit would be if permitted on that property.
I'm sorry, Michael, I don't understand your comment.
The entrance is in, if you take together, you don't like an L shape in the very corner of the L, which is the road for the frontage of both Merle and 7th. Their driveway entrance is right in the center of the intersection. So with no stop sign at their driveway, they have free access to drive right out into the middle of a four-way intersection. It's not for as far as safety goes, it's a very bad spot to put it.
But I'm sorry, through you, Mayor Logo. When I said that I don't like L-shaped lots, it's
No,
not,
I'm just trying to give you a visual. That's
sorry.
completely irrelevant. So I was just trying to give you a visual.
Michael, can you hold on so Jennifer can speak, please?
When creating new lots, we generally do a rectangle or something because it avoids confusion with adjacent landowners. The proposed entrance for the severed lot is not located at the intersection of 7th Line and Merrill Road. I understand that there is a field entrance there right now, but that's a field entrance for the existing, for the property. There's also their detached, their garage building, which is located further north on Merrill Road, has an access from Merrill Road. And the applicant will be retaining the existing field entrance on the 7th Line immediately adjacent to the proposed severed lot. So the proposed severed lot will have a new entrance constructed on it, and then we'll use a portion of the existing driveway to access their properties, while a new field entrance will be, while the existing field entrance will be upgraded on 7th Line with a culvert, and they will have to create a new segment to join in to the existing road that flows through the property. So there's no proposal to use that corner field entrance at Merrill Road for the severed lot.
Thank you, Jennifer. Michael, do you have any more comments?
Yeah, Jennifer mentioned there, interestingly enough, about a detached garage. So we're just wondering, you talk about all these rules and stipulations and compliance, and here's people living in a farm garage, not paying their fair shake of taxes in the township when they are to build a house and have been told for several years, and now they're getting to use the system to their advantage. So we're kind of the property owners around here were kind of disappointed about that bylaw has never been followed through by them, and here they are going to be able to follow through with a severance while not following bylaws.
Okay, Jennifer, do you have a comment?
Through you, Mayor Lobo. If you have a concern or
it is a concern, and the gentleman in charge is well aware of the problem, and it's never been dealt with accordingly. So I mean, we're not going to keep crying about it. Daryl Hall's aware of it, and nothing's ever been done. So why should we keep complaining? But now here's a severance, and they're using it to their advantage when it's for them.
Michael, have you ever sent in a complaint? I've never heard of this before, maybe, Pat, have you ever
Yes,
heard?
there has been by property owners in the past. It's a well-known issue. So that's, I'm not going to continue to complain when it's been, sent in or verbally discussed.
Okay, we're gonna look into it, and, Pat, you have the proper, information regarding the lot concession, and I guess we have all of that. We'll be able to look up and see how many complaints we've had and take action if necessary. I have a question from the gallery, or I did have a question from the gallery. Sir, would you like to make a question or comment? Please state your name so we have it on record.
My name's Neil Bolton, and my editor.
First name?
Neil.
Neil. Thank you, Neil.
We are, and there's a adjacent property which is being severed. And certainly when the first, we got notice of this, we were quite concerned about this particular severance, primarily from the safety issue. We had, actually, I think 5 neighbors come and knock on the door and expressing concern about this particular severance. And so I attended a meeting actually with Jennifer. I don't have the date exactly, Jennifer, but maybe you'll recall. I came to your office and we had a discussion in addition to the phone call. And at that time, you advised me that the plan is going to be modified, the severance is going to be modified to an L shape. And fortunately, this will help with the safety concerns about the driveway, which was proposed on that steep slope. Nevertheless, there are still some safety concerns regarding the speed limit on that road and the blind entrances at the top of the hill. At a different time, we will approach council or submit a complaint form, which your worship has recommended earlier in the gallery here. So we intend to do that. Okay. At some point in time. The lot itself is very steep. The grade itself, you sever it off, so there could be some concerns there, but I would assume the building permit would cover off any issues there. The entrance for the safety issues with emergency vehicles will have to be looked at as well to make sure they can actually make it around the corner to come up a steep grade in the event they need to attend in the future. So I trust that will be looked at down the road as well. And the only other comment I noticed in your report, Jennifer, about a wetland 150 meters or 120 meters setback from the wetland. Is that actually measured from the edge of the west lot line to down to the wetland down below?
Sorry, through you, Mayor Lobo. I did a measurement of the wetland from the proposed severed lot. It's obviously on the retained portion, but it's not on the severed lot.
Right, it's on the retained portion.
Yes.
That wasn't, I just wanted a clarification of there have to be 120 meters from that wet area up to the.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Is it the structure? Sorry, is it the structure or the line lot where the 120 meters has to be from?
Generally,
Yeah.
it has to be the lot line because lot creation is considered development. And if you do development within the influence area, you need to do the required environmental studies. Sometimes if it looks like it's close and there's it might be, say it's 110 meters, but there's a sufficient building envelope outside of the area, then you can specify in the zoning that you can, and sometimes it's included in the required rear yards and that sort of thing.
All right, thank you. So just one last question, and if we could get a copy of your recommendation, we would appreciate having copies of that, of conditions and so on over time.
Through you, Mayor Lobo. Yes, you can.
Thank you.
We'll have Alex put you down to receive a copy of the notice of decision, which includes all of the recommendations.
Thank you for the question. Any further comments from council? Jennifer, would you read the proposal, the recommendation?
Yes. Certainly, through you, Mayor Local. The recommendation is that application AH03-2023 by Irina Patek to sever a parcel of land for the creation of a new vacant rural residential lot in part of lot 21, concession 7, geographic Almwick, is hereby approved subject to the following conditions. 1, that a registered survey for the severed parcel be submitted to the township. 2, further to the printed plan of survey, a closed polygon vector file of the park boundaries shown on the reference plan is to be provided in spatially referenced Autodesk DWG Windows readable format for the satisfaction of the township. It is recommended that the applicant's Ontario land surveyor consult with the County of Northumberland GIS section to confirm acceptable standards and formatting. 3, that a draft transfer for the severed parcel be submitted to the township. 4, that the tax account for the severed subject property be paid up to date. 5, that a zoning bylaw amendment be in effect for the severed parcel pursuant to the Planning Act. 6, that the applicant apply for an entrance permit for the existing field entrance that be retained on the retained parcel, and further that the existing field entrance be improved with the installation of a 9-meter by 450-millimeter culvert to the satisfaction of the manager of public works. 7, that the $11,813.38 development charge for the severed lot be paid to the township of Alma-Calderman, and 6, that the $1,500 cash in lieu of parkland fee be paid to the township of Alma-Calderman.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any further comments regarding the application? Go ahead, Councilor Neal.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm in the right spot, so, clerk, you may need to help me. I'm thinking we should have a motion to refer here. There's been a couple of issues raised that I think we should have answers to before we proceed further on this. In particular, I think we should refer it to Fire Chief Dawson, who has indicated that he does have concerns with the size of vehicles and access to property. So I think it is a worthwhile question since it's been raised by 2 people here. And also to our bylaw enforcement, that it is currently being used in compliance with our bylaws. Am I even in the right ballpark, Clerk Kemp?
Yes, you can refer or defer the further information, and we can ensure that both the fire chief and bylaw enforcement officer have a report back to you, this committee, for your consideration.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I guess we should have with from what
So that was a motion to refer. I think we would need a seconder.
Yeah. So it's been moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Ainsworth, that we defer this decision until we have more information from Fire Chief Dawson and bylaw enforcement officer. I guess it's bylaw enforcement. Well, that's a mistake. Bylaw enforcement officer Paul, regarding the questions that come up. And I think we should have that all done so that at the next planning meeting, we have the answers and we can make a decision. Well, it's been moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Ainsworth to refer. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. And the next one we have is an application from Shane Weatherby and Andrew Watson. The agent is Stacy Weatherby, AH04-2023, concession 9, part of lot 3, geographically in Alderman. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Right here, Mayor Local. This application, I'm sorry, I just went too far ahead of you. Application AH04-2023 by Shane Weatherby and Andrew Watson. The purpose of the application is to sever a parcel of land for the creation of a 0.62 hectare new vacant rural residential lot from an existing 2.3 hectare property located at 2667 Shelter Valley Road. As I mentioned, the property would have an area of 0.62 hectares, frontage of 46 meters. The retained lot would have an area of 1.68 hectares and frontage of 160 meters. The 2.3 3 hectare subject property is located on the south side of Shelter Valley Road, approximately 225 meters from Vernonville in the southeast quadrant of the municipality. The property is developed with a single detached dwelling and a coach house, which is a secondary dwelling unit. There's a small man-made pond on the subject property, which will be located on the proposed retained lot. Most of the property is covered with mature trees. Surrounding land uses are a combination of rural residential and rural land uses. There's a small livestock farm located on the north side of Shelter Valley Road at 2708 Shelter Valley Road. And lands to the south and west have been cleared for agricultural cultivation. Shelter Valley Creek is located about 210 meters north of the subject property on the other side of Shelter Valley Road. The property is designated rural, and the provincial policy statement allows for the creation of residential locally appropriate rural residential lots in the rural designation. Both the severed and retained parcels will have frontage on Shelter Valley Road, which is a year-round municipally maintained road. And the lot is both severed and the retained lots are both sufficiently sized to accommodate the required private services. And an MDS calculation was prepared for the livestock farm located on the north side of Shelter Valley Road, and the MDS setback does encroach minorly onto the subject property. However, the encroachment is included within the side yard setback requirement, so no special requirements are required. Northumberland County again has adopted OPA number 1, which establishes a natural heritage system. And it's not OPA number 1 hasn't been approved by the province yet, so it's not in force in effect. It does identify this property as part of a regionally important wetland. In their January 6th comments, Lower Trent commented that there are no natural hazards, natural heritage features, or water features of provincial concern on the subject property. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. The property is not located on the Oak Ridges Moraine, so the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan does not come into effect. The county official plan designates the property as rural, and development lot creation is permitted in the rural area. The township's official plan allows for lot creation in rural designation, subject to a number of criteria, one of which is the MDS, which I discussed earlier. The property has to have frontage on the municipally maintained road, which this one does. Lots need to be appropriately sized, which this one is. So the application is consistent with the township's official plan. The zoning bylaw zones the property rural exception 144 on Schedule A. The 144 zone permits a number of uses, all the rural uses, with a minimum lot size of 2.2 hectares. Neither the proposed 2.62 hectare severed nor the 1.68 hectare retained lots will comply with the 2.2 hectare minimum lot area. So both of the properties will need to be rezoned, and it's recommended that they be rezoned to the rural residential zone. The application was reviewed by Manager of Public Works, who indicated that there's sufficient sightline visibility for a new entrance. Lower Trent comments were reviewed. They have no concerns. There's no natural heritage or hazard features on the property. Northumberland County had no concerns, and Alderville First Nation commented that they had no issues. The application was posted and notice was circulated on January 6th. No public comments have been received. So the proposed severed lots located in the rural part of the municipality, it's not outside of the Oak Ridges Moraine. There's no natural heritage features or natural hazards on the property, and the recommendation is that the application be approved subject to the conditions outlined in the report.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, Stacy Weatherby, are you online?
No.
Okay, seeing that you're not, we have a member of the public in the gallery. Any questions from the gallery? Thank you. Okay.
Through you, Mayor Logo, the recommendation is that application AH04-2023 by Shane Weatherby and Andrew Watson, agent Stacy Weatherby, to sever a parcel of land for the creation of a new vacant rural residential lot in part of Lot 9, Concession 3, Geographic Township of Haldeman, is hereby approved subject to the following conditions. 1, that a registered survey for the severed parcel be submitted to the township. 2, further to the printed plan of survey, a closed polygon vector file of the part boundaries shown in the reference plan is to be provided in spatially referenced Autodesk DWG Windows readable format for the satisfaction of the township. It is recommended that the applicant's Ontario Land Surveyor consult with the County of Northumberland GIS section to confirm acceptable standards and formatting. 3, that a draft transfer for the severed parcel be submitted to the township. 4, that the tax account for the subject property be paid up to date. 5, that a zoning bylaw amendment be in effect for the severed and retained parcels pursuant to the Planning Act. 6, that the $11,813.38 development charge for the severed lot be paid to the Township of Alma-Calderman. And 7, that the $1,500 cash and parkland fee be paid to the Township of Alma-Calderman.
I would take a motion to approve this application with the 7 recommendations of the planner. So that will be moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councilor Booth. Any further discussions? All in favor? Motion is carried. Next, we're going on to item number 8. And I need a motion to reconvene to a municipal planning meeting. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Alma-Calderman, being a land division committee or a committee of adjustment, reconvene to the municipal planning meeting at 10:50. Mover and seconder. Moved by Councilor O'Neill, seconded by Councilor Ainsworth. All in favor? Carried. Next, we're going into a public meeting for zoning applications. During the public meeting portion of the proceedings, the following procedure will be taken for each application being considered. I will announce the application in order as listed on the agenda. Jennifer Kernan, our senior planner, will summarize her findings and give recommendations. The applicants will be asked if they wish to add any further information or comments. All participants will be unmuted for this portion of the proceedings. The public will be asked if they wish to make any comments on the application. In order to be recognized by the chair, please approach by stating, through you, your worship, I, and provide your name, would like to make comments regarding this application. Once the chair has recognized you, you may speak. You may be able to speak. Please try to refrain from speaking over someone else. Please direct your comments or questions through the chair. And our application for this is from Albert Anderson, Z01 2023, regarding bylaw 01-2023, concession 33, part of Lot A, geographically in Haldeman.
Through you, Mayor Logo, application Z01 2023 applies to land in the southwest quadrant of the municipality owned by Albert Anderson. This application is required as a condition of consent application AH14 2022, which was conditionally approved by the Land Division Committee of Adjustment on June 1st, 2022. That severance application created a new vacant rural residential lot. During the consent review process, it was determined that the application, or that the severance application, which created the 0.4 hectare property, was consistent with the provincial policy statement, the county official plan, the township's official plan. The property is not located on the Oak Ridges Moraine. There are no natural heritage features or natural hazards located on the subject property or the land subject to this application. The CNCP Railway does form the southern boundary of the property, but it is located quite a distance away from the severed lot. There is a livestock barn on the north side of County Road 2 in this area. An MDS calculation was prepared at the time of the severance, and the proposed severed lot is located outside of the required MDS setback. So the recommendation here, I didn't go through all all of the consent policies and the official plan policies because we went through those when we created the lot. So the proposed severed lot is consistent with the growth plan, the provincial policy statement, the county official plan, the township official plan. And the recommendation is that the property be rezoned to the rural residential zone, which will permit a single detached dwelling on a 0.4 hectare severed lot. The application was circulated to agencies as required by the Planning Act. We received a comment from Aldergrove First Nation. We don't have any issues with this amendment being granted to the applicant. Lower Trent had no objections and Northumberland County had no objections. Public circulation was undertaken on January 6th with a sign also posted on the property, and no public comments have been received. So the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoes, and the Oak Ridges Marine Conservation Plan, and maintains the intent of the Township of Elmwood Calderman official plan.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions or comments from council? And I don't believe we have Albert we don't, okay, thank you. Any questions from the gallery? Seeing none? Okay, I'll read the motion then. Be resolved that application Z012023 to amend the zoning on parcels of land owned by Albert Anderson, legally described as part of Lot 33, Concession A, geographically Township of Alderman, from the rural RU to the rural residential RR zone in the Township of Elmwood-Calderman, zoning bylaw 19/2019 as amended be approved. And further that a bylaw will be passed later in this meeting. Mover and seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover. Seconded by Councilor Ainsworth. Further discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried. And then we're going to go into, let's take a 5-minute break, or 10-minute break.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I'll make the motion that we take a 10-minute break.
Moved by Councilor Medina, seconded by Councilor, all in favor? We'll take a 10-minute break.
This is you.
Okay, we'll call the meeting back from recess, and we'll have a mover and a seconder to do that, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councilor Ainsworth. All in favor? Carried. Next portion of the meeting, we're going to have a presentation regarding the planning budget, and we're going to pass the meeting over to Nicole, our treasurer. Go ahead, Nicole.
Through you, Mayor, I'm assuming everyone can hear me on the microphone. You should have a copy of both the planning budget and the issue paper. Does any of council need a hard copy or? Okay, perfect. So the reason why we're doing this today, our planner will be absent next week, and I wanted to make sure that council had the opportunity to ask any questions of her if there's anything that you want clarification on. So therefore, I will go through a bit of a quick summary. Then I will also give Jennifer a chance to speak and add anything that she would like to add, and then we'll open it up to questions from council. One of the things that obviously we're not at the point of looking to pass this budget, it's really just to have a discussion. What I would like to do is ask for council at the end of our discussion to pass a resolution to approve the recommendations made in Jennifer's issue. That aside for now and move forward. So just so you know, the planning budget itself is not a large portion of the overall municipal budget. The overall budget at the moment is sitting at about $7.4 million for the levy, and the planning part of that budget accounts for 2.6% of that. As well, there is an increase showing on the planning budget for 2023 versus 2022. The increase is $18.5 thousand. So that's a 10.7% increase on last year's planning budget. The impact to the levy is only 0.25%, so it's not even a percentage point. Just to give you an idea of what that impact will be. So the first thing that probably comes to your mind is, so what makes that up? So if you have a chance to look at it, you'll see that we put in an increase for legal fees of $2,000. We did have an increase in legal costs in the past year. Part of that was to do with the short-term rentals, and I think there was some and I'll let Jennifer talk about that if she'd like after. As well, the 3% COLA increase has been included the staff wages. The other increase that you see from 2022 to 2023 in the salaries and benefits section is that we did not budget enough for benefits in 2022. You'll notice that on the benefits line, we budgeted 11.5 and the actuals were 14.8. And I believe from looking back at that was definitely under budgeted for that. And I think part of the reason was we made a decision in the 2022 budget to ensure that the administrative assistant and building planning was being split between building and planning. And when we did that, I think we missed that benefit portion in that line. So it would have been allocated within the budget, just not within the budget. The other item, which is part of the issue paper that Jennifer has prepared, is the $7,500 to reserves for the official plan update. And so there is we're expecting that in 2024, and Jennifer can correct me if I'm wrong, that there will be an update in 2024. So we want to make sure that we're annually putting away amounts into reserves. Now, there is an amount sitting in reserves at this time, but it was actually set aside for the zoning bylaw, which Jennifer already has updated on behalf of the municipality. So what we're recommending is those funds are not earmarked for that they be open to be used for OPM. A couple other things I just wanted to draw your attention to, because these are the types of things that tend to spark questions. And one is that we had budgeted for a summer student last year. So you see that we're budgeting for that again. However, we don't see any revenue coming in last year, and that's because we never did get a summer student.
I missed that. I'm sorry. What were you talking about? What's the subject?
Sorry, summer student.
So, student.
Yes, sorry. So we did budget for that, but we were unsuccessful in finding a position. And the other thing that Jennifer and I were speaking about, you'll see on the site plan fees line that in 2021 we're showing $6,500 in revenues. Well, $3,500 of that was actually subdivision fees that we brought in, but we never had a revenue line to show that as a separate item. So we've added a new GL account. When I'm doing my final adjustments for 2022, we will be moving that down to that subdivision line. So that will leave $3,000 on the state plan fee line. There's probably a few other things what I want to remind council, and we'll talk about this some more again next week when we meet, is that the 2022 actual numbers that you are seeing were up to date as of, I believe it was the first week of January. We had brought in everything that we had. We are still receiving some invoices for 2022. However, we have requested from our suppliers to receive as many as we can to get 2022 wrapped up. As well, we'll still have to have our 2022 audit take place. So there will be adjustments that I need to make. There will be further invoices coming in as well as the audit to take place. So I just don't want anybody to feel that December 31st, 22 actual number is, I guess, gospel, because it is not set in stone and will still be a moving number as we get our adjustments. So I think all I had noted that I needed to say. Jennifer, if you wanted to add anything before we go forward with the issue paper.
Sure. Through you wear logo. Excuse me. The planning budget, the most significant is the planning budget from this year to this year would be the recommendation that we put $7,500 a year into a planning reserve that can be used for planning studies in the future. Municipalities are required by the Planning Act to update their official plan every 10 years. Our official plan is 2015 official plan, so it's coming up on 2025. But also when the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe came into effect, the upper tier municipalities and the lower tier municipalities were required to update their planning documents within 2 years. Well, the county has started their review of their planning documents by adopting official plan amendment number 1 that was sent to the province in, I think it was January or February of last year, and the province hasn't reviewed or approved it. So we have to wait for the county to approve their official plan amendments. They're updating their official plan through a process of amendments, and we have to wait for the county to do theirs until we can update ours, because our official plan has to be consistent with the upper tier municipalities. But in the meantime, we can start to build up a reserve to pay for an official plan update because they can be expensive. I reached out to a consultant and they could be anywhere from 75,000 to 125,000. So depending on the scale and scope of what we need to do, it would be nice if we had the plant name reserve had some money put aside in it so that when it came time that we had to update our official plan in 1 year, we didn't have to come up with $75,000 or $100,000. We may have $75,000 there already. So that's the purpose of the putting money aside each year into a reserve fund. I do have included in the planning budget a summer student. Hopefully we can find a qualified summer student this year. Maybe I have to lower my bar a little bit to get what we need to do, but we're splitting a summer student between building and planning. We just received a large scanner that we will be using to scan in a lot of our building drawings, but a lot of our planning information. And our hope is to get a GIS summer student that can do the scanning and also at the same time link all of our surveys that we have scanned in to our GIS system, just make things smoother. If you look at your actuals to budgets, the only significant one that has not reached its budget amount is the $20,000 for Northumberland County Planning Services. We just received the fourth quarter invoices this past week. So those figures, while it says that we at the end of December we'd only paid $13,360, we received the final invoices just recently. So those numbers are what it actually costs. We did go over budget with legal, and that was due to requests from council for legal opinions on a couple of different items. So I had previously had $5,000 in our budget. It was cut down to $4,000 last year, and the actuals were actually $5,960. So I recommended $6,000 in it. Those are the big things. I'm not putting 5,000 in for records management now because it's my understanding that we're going to be doing a municipal wide records management project this year. So the planning, there was a room full of planning documents that we've been slowly over the past 3 years dealing with $5,000 worth at a time. And now we're down to the last bit. So we'll include that with the larger records management program. And then, as Nicole mentioned, one item is there's an outstanding planning reserve that's been earmarked for a zoning bylaw update. It's $46,099.01. And the recommendation is to transfer that to the reserve, reserve that can be used for an official plan update. The zoning bylaw, they're in the process of updating. They had a consultant and they were in the process of updating it when I came, but I just finished it in-house, so that money didn't have to be used for a consultant, so we can just save it and hopefully redirect it for an official plan update. I don't know if it's possible, I didn't mention this to Nicole, if it's possible just to have a planning document review or reserve fund. So it's not earmarked specifically for an official plan or a zoning bylaw, it's just for either. I don't know if that's possible.
Through you, Mayor. As far as I'm concerned, if council so wishes, and I think Jennifer has a very good recommendation there, that we can have the reserve there just for planning purposes. It doesn't necessarily have to be earmarked for a particular purpose. If council so wishes for it to be earmarked for something specific, then they can do that, but it can be a general reserve.
I'd kind of like to see, when we know that it's coming up in the next couple of years, if we have to do it, I think we should be dedicating it right to that. When we don't pay it, if we know it's going to spend it, then we can have it. Go ahead, Greg.
Questions, can we ask questions now?
Absolutely.
On the budget before we get to the issue paper? Okay, through you, your worship, thank you for answering Jennifer about the record management. So just a couple of questions. One is under subscriptions and memberships. You had budgeted $788.45 and spent double. And it looks like then you're going from double back down to 811 for.
I can answer that.
Okay.
So what's happened, and this is part of the whole entries thing, in the 2020 year, we received the 2023 membership dues invoice in. It was entered in 2022. So I have a journal entry to do to move that into 2023. And so there is a small increase over what it cost in the prior.
Okay, thank you. That answers that one. And I'm just hoping to, and this is more, I guess, towards the treasurer, Nicole, is it was brought up last year, Nicole, that, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I added up all the subscriptions and everything for the town, and it was quite a high amount. It was over $10,000, I want to say, or whatever. And we were hoping that the previous council was hoping that the town could go through and look at, are there any subscriptions that are being doubled up by staff? For example, if planning is getting a subscription and somebody in the works yard is getting the same subscription, whether we could look at, you know, we've probably all seen it where they have the magazine and you put the names on the magazine, and when you read it, you sign it off and you hand it to somebody else, so that we're not ending up spending so much. So that's just a comment on that, but I'm sure it'll come up in budget. The second question was about consultant fees. That you had 5, we spent 656, we had 1,000, we spent nothing last year, and now we're asking for $2,190. Maybe you can explain, Jennifer, what is the consultant fees for?
The consultant fees were a portion that I could draw on if I needed to get an outside consultant to help assist with something, but $21,954, I don't.
No, 2,000.
Or sorry, $2,190. No, sorry, 2190.54. That doesn't strike me as a budget number that I would.
It just
I don't think in weird numbers like that.
Yeah.
I think in even numbers. So I'm not sure where that's from.
And I can't recall.
I can't recall.
Jennifer, I bet you I have
I know what you meant. So we'll look into that. We'll look into that.
I can.
Okay, and the last one was contracted and signage, both of them. Contracted services, which is now 0, and the signage is 0. And there used to be budget lines. So is the signage now, was that when planning goes out and stick up signs on a post or something, and now?
Well, yes, see, we have Tim, who works for the municipality, and Tim generally goes out and posts those signs. So I have not had any particular signage fees, so I didn't know why I needed a signage item, which is why there's nothing in there.
Oh, I love it. I love it if you're taking it away, which is good. Same as maybe contracted services, that's at 0. There was 500.
Yeah.
And
again, that was something that we never used, so why would I have it in my budget?
okay, good. Thank you. And I just wanted to make the comment that historically, I can say, just to the other councillors, that the planning budget usually the last 3 years has been very good to look at. It's very concise, accurate numbers and everything, and it looks like you've continued on with it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Mike.
Through Mayor Lobo. Just I'm looking at when the budget comes up where we can save money also too. And I wonder, we have a vast amount of residents with a huge amount of knowledge of that we could be, reaching out to some of these people and see where they can help out with some of these. For instance, $75,000 or $100,000 to do our planning. If we've got some residents out there that can help do some stuff volunteer to still kind of keep up their their standards that could help out with that, you know, and trying to save some money. You know, and anywhere you can cut out the middleman, it seems like, you know, we pay a lot of money to the county, and then we got county services in here for like 13,500. So I would, me personally, would just like to see where we can use some of our own resources and cut the middleman to try to save some tax dollars. So I mean, the you know, raised by taxation, $193,000. So I'd like to see us look at some things like that.
What would that county services be?
Those are planning service. Okay, there's a couple of there's county services, and those are the services that they provide to us as a overall planning subdivision, generally subdivision approval authority. Before I came to the municipality, we didn't have a professional planner at the municipality. So they relied on the county to do subdivision review and run the subdivision process. Now, in addition to the application fees, because when an applicant submits an application, there's application fees that they have to pay, and then there are so that covers a portion of the fees. The county services fees are the fees that we pay to the municipal or county, so that we can use their planning services as a resource, not necessarily specifically application related. That's what it is. Now the GIS services, those are very important to me. That is when we are updating our property fabric information for our GIS system. A number of years ago, there was a project through Ganaraska Region Conservation Authority where they were supposed to update our property fabric, and it didn't go well, and we did not get the required data from it. As it stands now, we have all the surveys that we have for the municipality have been scanned in, and the GIS department at Northumberland County is then georeferencing them to create an accurate property fabric. The hope is, well, no, my dream, I want to have a municipal GIS system that we have available to the public on our website. But until we have accurate property lines, that can be a dangerous thing, because if your lot fabric isn't right and it gets out into the public, then we need to have accurate property lines. So the $20,000 a year, do I have 20,000 in GIS? Yes, 20 that I've got in GIS is intended to do that. Now, okay, I apologize. I spoke a little bizarrely earlier. We have 13,500 for county services, which is our planning services. And we just received our last invoice. The $20,000 I have for GIS. Unfortunately, last year, the county GIS department lost, one of their GIS technicians left the county. So they weren't available to do our full $20,000 worth of work that we had allocated to them. We told the county that we've got $20,000. You have $20,000 that you can use to update our property fabric, but they lost the staff resources to be able to utilize that full amount. We get invoiced. Now, I will say that using county GIS services, their rate is a very reasonable rate for the services that we get from them. It is not an inflated or bloated rate at all. We get good value for that money for using the county GIS services, but that's why we haven't used the full amount. There was one more outstanding invoice in the amount of, I think it's about $650-ish. So that probably came up to $14,000 for 2022 for the GIS services. But the difference between the 14 and the 20 is the fact that the county lost a staff person and they weren't able to provide the maximum services there.
The county, so someone fills in the severance application and the county comments on it, where does that appear? Is that in your county services? Or?
No, that doesn't appear on here because that's kind of a revenue neutral. Because the way it works is when somebody submits an application for a severance, I'm going to give you the 2022 fees. That was $1,000 for the township of Calderman, $500 for county inspection services, $250 for county planning services, and $420 for Lower Trent Conservation. Now, the Lower Trent Conservation and the county fees are submitted to the municipality with under separate checks directed to Northumberland County and Lower Trent Conservation. So we forward those fees on directly to the Conservation Authority and the county, so they don't flow through our books at all.
Okay, so there's the, you know,
No.
it's not here, okay. That's what you on
With respect to subscriptions and memberships, these are membership fees, and there are no subscriptions for publications in this, and that's the actual fee. So there's no duplication there.
Just to comment on what Greg was saying, and council's got to set a good example there too. If we're all getting magazines, and I don't know if we are, I don't know if you're getting, I don't get very many, but we just want to make sure if we are paying more than once, that they come to whoever they can distribute around. They don't have to be involved. Most of the stuff is not something you have to read tonight or anything else like that. I don't quite understand, all the revenues are negative. And I know it's taken off at the bottom, but like, for example, you've got the planning student as being a negative. If we get a negative, if we actually pay for that, how do we get it to be a negative? And I'm no accountant, so.
Yeah. So I haven't changed the format of how this was originally set up. So anything that is money coming in or revenues is showing as a negative amount, and the money going out is a positive. And I think the thought process and the way it was done in the past was that we're trying to reach the levy amount. We want that to come into the final spreadsheet as a positive number, but that's truly, it's going to be our expenses. So then in order to do that, we have to show the revenues as a reduction in what we need to fund for the levy, right? Because we're bringing that.
And that's going to continue on for the full budget.
Yes. So anything you see in negative is a revenue item, and you should see those at the top of every budget.
And I guess my last comment, and I'll make this not so much to planning, but generally, we have to hire a consulting, not consulting, but legal services. You know, I think we got to watch ourselves, because that can end up being very, very expensive when you take all the departments together. I'm assuming that, I don't know for sure, but I think we got to watch the legal fees. We may have to get them, but lots of times, and I'm just going to use a comment, but lots of times it's common sense. You know, I'm not going to talk about anything specific, but I'm going to suggest that, you know, the easiest way to go after somebody hard and say you disobeyed the law, and you hire a lawyer, they're going to come and tell you probably, don't go after the guy for, you got to be respectful of, you can't treat that just because he's been bad all the time. You got to go through the process of sending him a nice letter saying, please pay the bill. And if they don't do that, then you get a little bit harder and harder. And that's when you need to bring in in my opinion, bring in the legal people. But sometimes common sense can work as well. That's all I've got to comment. And other than that, I think it's a good presentation. Thank you. But that's only me. Anybody else? Mary Catherine?
Just a general question through you, Mayor, to our treasurer. The cost recovery is approximately a quarter of the expenses in the department. Is that normal in planning?
I guess when you're asking through your Mayor, is it normal versus other municipalities or other?
Yes, is there, like, how much is that cost recovery aiming to cover up the costs, is I guess the question I'm asking.
I mean, it's unlike the building department, like when you look at building, it's one that we are to ensure when we have and this is why we have studies done on a fairly regular basis, especially if you see that starting to come out of whack, but I don't believe in, and Jennifer, correct me if you've come across anything, I don't believe that there's anything required within the municipal act that requires us to have a full recovery of costs within the planning department. I can absolutely, poll local municipalities to see what their recovery rate is of the cost within the planning department, but I know that I've never come across it having to actually recoup.
Yeah, I wouldn't think it'd be the full amount, but I thought there might be a target.
Did you want to comment?
Through you, Mayor Lobo. Generally, unfortunately, planning departments don't cover their costs. The application fees for the applications, the target is to generally cover your costs, but there's a lot of work in planning that goes along with things that are not recoverable through application fees. There's a lot of inquiries, a lot of consultations and meetings, and the official plan update and zoning update and all of that kind of stuff isn't application driven. So it doesn't generate fees. It just ends up costing money as opposed to, excuse me, a specific application like the ones that we've received today. Those we receive fees for those.
Any other questions, comments? And I have one more quick thing. You talked about the benefits, and just so everybody understands, that's my understanding of it anyways. We say that historically, I think we say 30 to 35% of the benefit costs, or pardon me, I'm going to start that a different way. There's 37% added on to your wages to pay for your total costs of having a person there. And it only shows up like about 10% here, but the costs are not only include the benefits, but it also includes CPP, EI, OMERS, DHT, and WSIB. Those are all costs of having a person work, not just the benefit portion. Okay, go ahead, Mike.
So question for you, because you're on county council. Are these like services in the GIS services, something that you can bring up at council along with the rest of the municipalities? When I'm looking at that number of times, like say 5, that could not be rolled into the already money that we give them. Also with their new budget that they brought up.
That is chargeable. As far as I'm concerned, that's a chargeable service. And that is not normally supplied by upper tier levels. And if we want to run our own GIS service, then we could have our own, or we could contract it out to somebody. But I tend to agree with Jennifer that we are getting a reasonably good and probably better price than you get off the market to have someone offer that service.
So would lower trench DIS be the same kind of thing?
Through your Mayor Lobo. I don't know that the conservation authorities have recently, the provincial government has scoped the ability of conservation authorities to provide services and comments to municipalities they're now limited to providing the municipality with comments on floodplains and regulated areas. So natural hazards, which are generally floodplains, and their regulated areas. There are some conservation authorities, Ganaraska in particular, that used to provide more of a sort of acted as a consultant and provided services. But it's my understanding that the changes that the provincial government did, the conservation authorities can't provide those services. Like they used to provide certain comments with respect to stormwater management studies and that sort of thing, and they can no longer provide those comments. So I'm not sure that conservation authorities are even allowed to now provide things like GIS services to a municipality. I don't know. Would be my suspicion is that under the recent changes that they're not allowed to. But the rate that we're getting from county for GIS services is I looked at it and I was actually surprised at it. I thought it would have been higher, but it's not. I did look into it. There are consultants out there that you can hire that can do GIS work, but I think it will cost us more.
And probably, and I can't quote you on this, but I believe there's 4 other municipalities, or at least 3 other ones that are using the county GIS services to for their municipalities.
Yes, 3 are local. I believe Hamilton Township uses county GIS services. The Township of Calderman uses GIS services. Cobourg and Port Hope both have their own GIS departments. Brighton has their own GIS department, and I think Trent Hills hires a consultant to do theirs, I believe, and I think Granby Township uses the county also.
Well, kind of to describe that, the bigger the ones probably have their own or a consultant. The smaller ones, our size, probably use the county.
Yeah, like Cobourg has a full-time GIS person, and they use GIS for their GIS system is amazing.
Any further? Do we have to go to the issue paper too?
Great, Mayor. Yes, if we could get a resolution to approve the recommendation if
Yeah, and really what you're asking us is we're aware of the planning budget, and we'll discuss that further when we finish the whole package. But the issue paper, you're asking that we approve this one so that it is in there.
Right.
Okay. Any questions or comments on the issue paper? Yes, go ahead. Great.
Through you, Your Worship, just one concern. I have no issue with the $47,215 reserve fund being allocated for a future plan thing. The only problem I have is to say that the $7,500 is going to go into that fund. We're kind of putting the cart before the horse here. We haven't looked at everybody else's proposals in that yet. So to okay it today to say that we agree we're going to put $7,500 towards that when we haven't looked at all the other departments, are we going to be able to come back at budget time, Nicole, and say, guess what? Everybody wants this, so they can't all have it. And can we retract that back? Or it's almost like we're giving the money to the planning department now and we haven't looked at all the other departments. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So if that's what council so wishes, that's fine. I know that as I go into the budget process, I will be asking I would be hoping that at the end of at least the first draft, that council might have an idea of which issue papers they would like to pass a resolution on and which they won't. The reason why I say that is that I have seen issues in past. This one is not that circumstance, so you could absolutely leave it. But if they're of a capital nature and we need to get for RFP or get quotes in, we would want to know that those items are approved by council sooner rather than later so that we can move forward. But I have no issue with us waiting till the end of the day 2 of the draft to then go through all of them and have council pass the resolutions at that point.
Yeah, I just hope the other councillors and would agree. I mean, it makes total sense. But I think for us to say, here's the 7,500 and maybe the fire department and the works department and bylaw, and everybody's going to come and say, I want this money too. And then we're going to have to go back and start to say, not everybody can have it. But I mean, it makes sense. I think we can still go ahead with would we do that, the recommendation for the 47,000 for the reserve fund? Do you need that to be able to put that money into there? Or could that wait until?
If you wait as well, if you wish to.
Well, I guess I have no issue with that, just at 7,500. And not that I'm disagreeing that you need it, Jennifer, just that I think we need to look at everybody's before we decide to commit to something.
Your Catherine?
I support that observation, but since you aren't going to be their planner current, I just want to say I appreciate whenever there's a predictable budget line put in, such as what you've described here with the 7,500. And planning for the future as well.
Okay. So, I think we've done the discussion. Can I have a mover or seconder to accept that report? Unless you're planning on saying, okay, we're going to accept the issue.
To receive and, would we say receive and file? And yeah, receive and defer to the budget presentation. I'll make that motion.
Okay, seconder. Seconded by Councilor Greenwood. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Next, we're going to go on to 11 communications, correspondence from the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Steve Clark, dated December 22nd, 2022, regarding legislative and regulatory changes. Nicole, can I just interrupt for a second? I just had a thought. Have you got the second day going all day for the budget?
I think we have it scheduled for 3 hours from 9:30 till 12:30. On the schedule, it may look like it's almost as much as the day before, but many of those budgets are very small. The only large one I would say is the.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you very much. So, we resolved that the correspondence received from the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Steve Clark, dated December 22, 2022, be received and filed. Mover and seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councilor Ainsworth. All in favor, receive and file. Motion's carried. Correspondence from the Ganaraska Region Conservation Authority dated January 6, 2023 regarding Conservation Authority legislative and regulatory changes, Bill 23 and Ontario Regulation 5222. Be resolved that the correspondence received from the Ganaraska Region Conservation Authority dated January 6, 2023 be received and filed. Mover and seconder. Moved by Councilor Booth, seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. All in favor? Oh, a question, just.
Sorry, through you, Mayor Local, planner current. You mentioned that that's not stormwater. And that's something that people actually were talking about when I was campaigning. So where would stormwater management fall now?
Sorry, through you, Mayor Local. Previously, with development applications, particularly site plans and subdivisions, plans of condominium, the Lower Trent Conservation would provide comments with respect to the stormwater management reports that were prepared in support of those. And they're no longer able to do that. So as part of the peer review of those type of documents, we undertake an engineering peer review, and the engineering consultant will review those. In terms of, Are you talking about just general stormwater runoff and that kind of thing? Somebody's
A
lawn
bit of
gets
both.
flooded and that kind of thing? Those types of things didn't go to the Conservation Authority. They went, those types of concerns generally come to Public Works and Building, and then planning will get involved if it involves a like a subdivision where there's an engineer grading plan and that sort of thing. Planning might get involved at that point in time, but generally, if they go concerns with respect to flooding and stormwater runoff, somebody's directed water onto somebody else's property, they come in as bylaw complaints usually, or complaints to Public Works, and they can be, most often they can be resolved fairly amiably. However, there are some circumstances that people have concerns that you can't satisfy them with, but that's not the type of stormwater that the Conservation Authority can no longer comment on. Those are generally done through the municipality. It's the application specific stormwater management reports.
Okay. All in favor?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, do you know? So I'm wondering about this report, if we just file it, are we committing to some of the things that the Ganaraska Conservation Authority is asking? Because of Bill 23 may be making some changes. Are we setting precedents if we file this agreeing that we're accepting it? Because there's some things in here that they want, like memorandum of understandings, and they want to continue on doing some of the stuff that maybe Bill 23 said they don't have to.
I don't know.
So I think part of the issue is the Ganaraska, the programs that they used to provide, they're no longer able to provide because of Bill 23. But I believe the information that they have in their document is the stuff that they still are required to do. Add more.
Yeah, I think by just accepting this piece of receiving this document, it doesn't obligate the municipality to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Conservation Authority for anything. A memorandum of understanding is generally a document that the municipality and a Conservation Authority enter into that spells out the services that they're going to be providing and their service delivery times and that sort of thing. And it's signed by both the Conservation Authority and the municipality. So just by receiving this, you're not obligating the municipality to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Conservation Authority.
So when Bill 23 is finalized, or maybe it is finalized already when it comes to the Ganaraska, is this, to me, it almost looks like they're trying to protect what we give per year as a dollar value. And I don't know whether we're committing to that or it needs to be reevaluated.
So what you commit to the Ganaraska would be what is in their levy that they ask the municipality to support. Usually when a municipality enters into a memorandum of understanding, the services that they provide over and above what they're mandated by the province, the municipality would agree to a fee schedule. So generally speaking, your levy is at whatever level, and then if there's other services that you're asking of them, that would be a separate fee schedule.
So will that levy dollar value be renegotiated after we figure out what they actually provide?
I'll comment on that. My recollection, we never had too much problem with Ganaraska. Because theirs was, $7,000, $10,000, $15,000. Where we did have some issues was with the Lower Trent. And I can remember penning 2 or 3 letters to them after telling the council rep to say we're paying too much, we're paying way too much, and sending them letters and everything else, and they just come back and said, that's the levy, you pay it. We could not, there's nothing we could do, but
Well, sorry, Rick. So Lower Trent, actually, they've taken about, we just had a meeting with them that we went through, and they've taken about 36 of their services down to one. So it's another thing that we should be looking at to,
there are 36 services down.
well, yeah, like, so like, it's kind of what, yeah, so they've kind of put it all into one column,
Oh, okay.
right? So again, the same thing as I'm saying with these guys, this whole thing with our tax dollars, we should be looking at things like this and wondering, like, reevaluate each one if we need to because of Bill 23.
Okay. I don't know how we do that, but go ahead, right?
I was just hoping that the two representatives now, that's a good point that you make, Councillor Ainsworth, is when you attend as part of the board, I'd be asking them to say, we pay this levy and we were getting these 35 services and now we're only getting one and two. Can there be a reduction? I do know, I concur with what the mayor was saying, Ganaraska, we're only paying, I think it's 10,000 or something, which is very minor. And I know in the past serving on them, they did have memorandums of understanding that if you wanted certain things over and above what they provided, it was like you picked it and then you provided extra, and we had nothing, I think, with them. But we have had concerns even in the last council with Lower Trent about their budget items, Mike, where they were buying trucks and hiring staff and everything when when we were having the pandemic, when Ganaraska was cutting all their things, and there was, we penned a few letters then too, Mayor, to them, and I know Mike Phillip, who was the representative, spoke. So hopefully both of you, when you go to the meetings, can say, you know, if because of this bill, we are not getting certain things done anymore, is there going to be a reduction in our levy?
I think that's a very good point.
Yeah.
And we should be doing that when we go to that meeting. It's cutting down from 36 to 1. And I don't think they're cutting all the services down. They're just kind of lump them maybe into one. But I would hope that, like, for example, I would hope they're not stepping away from our water protection for the water. You know, that's one service they got here, and they call it something different, but we can't just step away from that. So
They're getting hit quite hard. They're getting hit quite hard when they get into all of it.
yeah. Well, it's been coming. I can't remember where I was. Did I finish reading that or not? I did, didn't I? All in favor? Yes, that's right. All in favor. Motion carried. Next was 12. Bylaws, bylaw number 01/2023, being bylaw to amend the comprehensive zoning bylaw number 19/2019, as amended, of the township of Elwood, Calderman, for Albert Anderson, concession 33, part of lot A, geographically in Alderman. Be it resolved that bylaw number 01/2023, being a bylaw to amend the comprehensive zoning bylaw number 19/2019, as amended, of the township of Elwood, Calderman, for Albert Anderson, concession 33, part of lot A, geographically in Alderman, be read and deemed to be passed this 27th day of January 2023. All in favor? Councillor Deputy Mayor Stover, Councillor Ainsworth, all in favor? Motion's carried. Announcements, notice of motion. Councillor Greg Booth.
No announcements, nothing planning related.
Okay. Councillor Mary Catherine.
Nothing planning related.
I have a couple of things, just a real quick comment on Roma. Both Greg and Deputy Mayor attended. That was a pretty good conference. I like the fact that it was short, from 2.5 days down to 1.5, or 3.5 to 2.5 days. It was pretty well organized. There's a new group there running it, and I thought the topics that they had were appropriate. Particular interest was the short-term rentals. We saw an awful lot of interest from many of the municipalities. I think that summarizes a little bit. Maybe you guys want to comment a little bit more. The second thing is, just so everyone is aware, the Associate Minister of Women's Economic Development and I think there's one more, is coming to this council chambers on Monday, along with 30 invited guests and 32 invited guests. And it's going through Mr. McChee's office. He asked if we can use the council chambers. And we're getting somebody like that in. I think it's really good if we can offer him that. And he's contacted the staff and all the details of all I know is there's 30 people coming, and the minister's name is Charmaine Wilson or Williams. Never met her and don't know so too much. Deputy Mayor Stover, I can't attend, so Deputy Mayor Stover will be here. Give them the blessing and thank you for coming to the township, et cetera, et cetera. That's all I have. Deputy Mayor Stover.
No, I'd just like to say again too, that one was very good. And it's interesting that as you go around and talk to the different attendees, they're all dealing with the same issues that we're dealing with. And Bill 23 was very front and center. And that kind of popped up throughout the conference as well. So it was very well run. Other than that, I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilor Ainsworth.
Question for Jennifer. Do we get follow-up of some of these things, like say for instance, for the services that we had today? So what the owner has to do to make sure the service is complete. So for instance, like all the safety stuff, the laneways, the paying their taxes, etc.
Through you, Mayor Lobo, with the application that was deferred, that was the tech severance on 7th line of Merrill Road. That application is going to come back to the February meeting with comments from the fire chief and from by law enforcement. Thank you. So you'll get an update then. But with respect to the severances that are passed, with all of the conditions, the only thing that comes back to council is if they're required to do a zoning bylaw amendment that comes to a subsequent meeting, that comes back to council. The rest of the conditions, like the draft transfers, the survey, the draft transfers, the development charges, that sort of stuff. When I receive the information, it's put in the file and I incorporate it. And then when they fulfilled all those conditions, I issue what's called a certificate of official. And that certificate of official is given to their lawyer, and that's what the lawyer uses to register the new lot. So I make sure that the taxes are paid and up to date, and I make sure that we get the draft transfer from the lawyer and that we get the registered reference plan and all of that stuff. So I make sure that stuff's done and that we collect the development charges and all. So I make sure all that stuff's done. The only thing that comes back to council once it's approved is if you're required to, if the property is required to be rezoned, then they do a zoning bylaw amendment.
Okay, one more question.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's possible, that's why I'm asking. So with the changes in Bill 23, do you think that we would have services that got turned down with some of those services passed? And if so, would we go back and look and contact the owner and say, hey, things have changed?
Through you, Mayor Lobo, we've only had one severance application, I believe, in the 4 years that I've been here, where the recommendation was that the application be denied. And that was a decision hasn't been made on yet. That's also coming forward to the February planning meeting. But with respect to the Bill 23, it didn't make any substantive changes. No substantive changes were made to the criteria for evaluating where a severance is permitted. So it didn't change things like severances are now permitted in the agricultural designation where they weren't previously permitted. There has been no changes to MDF, the minimum distance separation requirements. It's still, you have to comply with that. And you have to comply with natural heritage. You can't, you still can't sever in a wetland and that kind of stuff. So there were no real substantive changes in terms of severance criteria that came about as a part of Bill 23. And yeah, so sorry, I hope that answers your
Yeah, no, that's fine. I appreciate that. And then one other thing, is there something that you can give us for like the differences, like so rural residential, rural agricultural, like all those different criteria?
I believe we provided you with a copy of that's the official plan. That's the official plan. That's your policy document. But the zoning bylaw amendment, I think it was in a binder. It's probably in a binder. And it has all of the zones in it. And I can give you a Pulse Notes overview right now. Generally in our settlement areas, which are Grafton, Fenella, Rosemead, Centerton, Burnley, Eddystone, Lakeport. Those are our settlement areas, and lands in our settlement areas. The residential uses are usually zoned hamlet residential. So in your hamlet, you'll have hamlet residential. You may have some general commercial, that sort of thing. Those are the sort of zones you would see in your hamlet. You might see some recreation commercial, which would be the arena. I forget what I called churches, maybe institutional, I can't remember. And pardon me?
Schools.
And schools would be an institutional type zone. Then in our rural area, we've got the two major land uses are the agricultural zone, which are your prime agricultural lands, and your rural zone or your rural designation. So you've got your agricultural designation and your rural designation. And then your smaller lots that your acre, 2 acre lots are generally zoned rural residential. And on your agricultural and your rural zoned lots, a broader range of uses are permitted: agriculture, barns. There's a whole slew of things, and it's outlined in the zoning bylaw. And then on the Oak Ridges Moraine, there's a whole other section that gives zones for it. It's the Oak Ridges Moraine Countryside and the Oak Ridges Moraine Environmental and the Oak Ridges. There's a whole slew of them, and that sort of thing. Then you've got shoreline residential uses, which are generally the land uses along the Rice Lake shoreline, some along the Lake Ontario shoreline. And then there's another residential zone called limited service residential, which are residential uses that front on private roads. They don't have frontage on a municipally maintained road. And those are generally for their cottage and seasonal properties. Then there's also a provincially significant wetland zone, but it's all in the zoning bylaw. And if you ever want to just come in and go through it, I'll be happy to do that.
Okay. 14, approval of a confirming bylaw. Bylaw number 10-2023 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the municipal planning meeting of Friday, January 27th, 2023. Be it resolved that the bylaw number 10-2023 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the municipal planning meeting of Friday, January 27th, 2023 be read and deemed to be council's approval of this 27th day of January 2023. Mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Booth, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. All in favor? Motion is carried. And we have a motion to adjourn at 12:15. Be resolved that the municipal planning meeting be adjourned at 12:15. All mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Angela, seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you.